And welcome, everybody, to another Nothing Like a Good Book. And this one today is certainly no exception. Nothing Like a Good Book, it's a division of the Mark Bishop Show. I love to feature, new authors, and we've had some exciting people over the last year. One's gone on to even have Hollywood TV shows and videos, or film, in fact, now being screenwritten for it all, so you never know. And today, my special guest, something a little different. Debra Jacobs is an occupational therapist. Actually, today as an author, her book is Safety and Consent for Kids and Teens with Autism or Special Needs. All right. So my very special guest author for this episode is Debra. She was born in the Kew Gardens in New York, and after an interesting journey, now resides right here in our Sonoran Desert with her husband and dog. And she's proud of her children and stepchildren and all their families as well. Debra Jacobs, welcome to Nothing Like a Good Book.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
To get a little bit of a background of you, because the book is about this now, how did you become an occupational therapist to start with?
Well, it started about 50 years ago, if you can believe it. I started working as a volunteer when I was in high school, working with children with special needs as a teacher's aide. And then over the years, I decided to pursue occupational therapy, which I learned about while I was working as a teacher's aide in a institution, actually, in Massachusetts. And I was implementing occupational therapy programs, which is what many aides in classrooms do. And I thought, well, it's interesting doing what the therapists tell us, but I want to be the person who can look at someone with any kind of needs and decide what's best for them to enhance their quality of life, their functional ability. Maybe they're healing, maybe they're developmentally delayed. And so that's when I decided to become an occupational therapist.
Well, that was pretty early in the game as well. I mean, I'm going to ask you a question here, probably, regarded by some as a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is occupational therapy?
So I get that a lot. Occupation, I'll tell you what it's
good.
Not.
That makes me feel better then.
No, that is probably my number one cocktail party conversation.
Okay.
So occupational therapy is unfortunately named because people automatically assume it's vocational. Then, the next thing people say, oh, can you get me a job? Well, occupation is a much broader part of life. Occupation refers to what you do in every aspect of your life. If you're a child, your main occupation is play, and you learn through play. If you're a homemaker, a mother, a wife, your occupation is taking care of your family. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're bathing. And everyone, all of us, our occupation includes taking care of ourselves, bathing, dressing. Now, you can imagine if you've ever broken your arm and you've had to learn to do things with one arm. Or, if you know somebody who's had a stroke or a joint replacement, they have to modify how they can complete their occupations. And also, as an occupational therapist, not only do we teach people physical rehabilitation, it's also cognitive a lot of times. And we figure out what is meaningful for the individual. What goals do they want to accomplish? Because every single individual is different. And that's what I love about occupational therapy. It's very holistic. It looks at each individual and honors each individual, where they are in life, what they want to accomplish, and what's realistic for them to accomplish. And we develop a plan together.
Well, I tell you what, that's a hell of an answer for a cocktail party, but it certainly wouldn't work in a lift, would it, when you got 20 seconds?
Okay, so here's the elevator pitch.
Okay. Well, we've got plenty of time to talk about it.
Occupational therapy is the art and science of helping people improve the quality of their life through activity.
Okay. Occupational therapy. It sounds like a darn good career. You did earn a BS in occupational therapy from USC and an MA, in fact, in behavioral health from Chapman University. And I've got to add a specialty certification in autism from Thomas Jefferson. Now, well, you've really touched on it. I was going to ask you, what was it that gave you that career direction? And it really goes back to when the little ones, it was very early, as we touched on. But I guess now, after almost, 40 years as an occupational therapist, you probably have worked in a myriad of healthcare settings. Just share some of those with us.
So I've worked in intensive care units, burn units. I've worked in inpatient psych hospitals. I've worked in brain injury day treatment programs, acute care in hospitals, and currently, and for most of my career, I've been in public schools.
Well, and you also have your own practice, right?
I did for a while have my own therapy practice where I was able to spend as much time as I thought was needed. I didn't have constraints of insurance because I didn't take insurance. I just was private pay. I didn't have constraints of timing because of school district criteria. It was really an opportunity to do the absolute best for the individual clients that I worked with. And that was very gratifying.
Yeah, particularly work in public schools in Tucson. So you see, folks, I wanted to get the good background of Debra because this is what her book is about. And it's not willy-willy, it's hard-earned experience. And that's why she wrote the thing, and it's titled Safety and Consent for Kids and Teens with Autism or Special Needs. And really, it's a parent's guide. That's what it is. So
Yes.
Why did you write it, Debra? And what are you really hoping it can do for parents and carers, for that matter?
Right, exactly. So this is really a passion work. About 4 years ago, when the Me Too movement was in the news constantly, and I was seeing very articulate, intelligent, educated women who were victims, who weren't powerful enough to keep themselves safe. And I don't have to go into details. Everybody knows a lot of people are still in the news being prosecuted and charged and so on. So I, at the time, was doing a girls group in the public school, and I'd meet once a week with 3 or 4 girls in elementary school who had various delays. They were in special needs because of physical as well as cognitive delays or disabilities or injury or illness. And I thought to myself, if those articulate, intelligent, educated women are victims, what about my girls, which I consider them my girls? They could barely string 2 sentences together. I mean, we work on signing our name and being friends and walking and improving our balance and completing our schoolwork. What chance do those girls have to stand up to someone who is out to molest them? And so I started to do some research, and it was horrifying. And as my publisher said, that they were horrified that this work hadn't been done yet. And so I had the unique ability to understand how to communicate with these girls and what they were communicating by their behavior. If anyone's ever worked with children with really significant multiple handicaps, they know that, like everyone else, there are good days and bad days. They're cranky. They don't want to do whatever task they were competent in the day before, the week before. Maybe a young child starts wetting or refuses to get on the school bus or walk into the classroom.
Yes, so many things, aren't there? There are so many indications, really.
Yes, and all behavior is communication. And so I started, again, as I said, doing research, and I thought, well, let's see what they're trying to communicate. Why does that girl with spina bifida? Why is her aide taking 45 minutes twice a day in the bathroom to do a hygiene task that should only take 10 minutes at most?
Right.
What is happening there? Who is questioning that? The girl can't report it. She doesn't have the vocabulary. She doesn't have the ability to know that perhaps something untoward is happening to her. And so I really dug deep, did a lot of research, and the book is separated by a child's ability to communicate or not, verbally or not. Some of the children look totally, what do they call it now? Neurotypical. So they look as if there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, but maybe they have the intelligence of a 1-year-old and they're 12 years old. And there are just so many examples. So the book is separated into what kind of disability there is and how best to understand what's being communicated and what steps we can take as adults to keep these children safe.
So, Debra, are you advising then that the developmental challenges of children with special needs means that they are more at risk of, physical or emotional exploitation?
Absolutely. The statistics are shocking. And children of color, non-white children, are even higher at risk for being molested.
That's sad.
Sexually molested, physically molested. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a number of ways that we as adults can prevent this, because we really want to prevent this.
Well, what is an important fact then that people need to understand about individuals with special needs?
Well, children with special needs are complete, total individuals. They have their likes and dislikes. They are perfect the way they are, and they're to be believed. And what we do in occupational therapy is we build on whatever level that child's starting at. So I have a 13-year-old right now who I've had for many years, and I've become very good friends with the family because this child is too medically fragile to leave the home. So I would go into the home, and this young man has the cognitive ability of maybe a 4 or 5 month old. Mm-hmm. But because I've taken the time to understand his likes and dislikes, he likes certain music. He likes when I read a story, and I work on that just so I can get a smile, some joy. And that does so much for overall health, as we know, right? Laughter is the best medicine. And then I work on physical movement when we could. During the pandemic, sadly, it's been on Zoom, but so people need to understand that anyone with a special need, no matter whether it was from birth or acquired, is complete and wonderful the way they are. And just like all of us, we're all learning. We're all a work in progress.
Well, you're listening to Nothing Like a Good Book with Mark Bishop, and my special guest is an occupational therapist, not a would-be if could be in writing, Debra Jacobs, and the book is called Safety and Consent for Kids and Teens with Autism or Special Needs. And going through the thing, I tell you, the book gives guidance to carers and information on how to identify warning signs of abuse and recognize telltale behavior changes in their child. Do you have any, shall we say, anecdotes you'd like to share about your experiences as an occupational therapist, Debra?
Well, not on, I do, but it doesn't relate to molestation because that's just too confidential and I can't, but there's been many gratifying experiences where I was in the intensive care unit. Woman is on a ventilator, breathing through a tube in her neck and really very, very ill. And she wanted to read, and she around her neck on one of those chains. And instead of, not to put down physical therapy, but it is what it is. It's purely physical, right? So there's exercises where you lift your arm up and down. And if you're that ill, you really cannot lift your hand from your lap, let's say, to your cheek, to your head, all the way up. So it was just a beautiful experience I'll never forget. It took me maybe 10 minutes to get her to sit at the edge of the bed, to sit up, and then her blood pressure had to be stabilized and everything, and nurses were helping. And then with both hands, she held the side of her glasses that were dangling around her neck. It took her 15 minutes to get them up over,
God love
onto her, over her ears. What an accomplishment.
Yeah, marvelous. We take things, don't we? Take things for granted. So, just it's a matter of fact. Now, I want to give you an accolade here. Christopher Lawyer, he's an elementary school principal, and he writes,
yes,
the insightful and detailed chapters give a glimpse of what is needed to avoid the potential traumas to a vulnerable population. It's an excellent resource. So, is your book a good resource, Debra?
It's an excellent resource. I wish that it was part of every school district. I wish my school district would hand it out to every new family that comes in and gets their child evaluated and starts the special education project. I guess political or whatever reasons, they're not doing that as much as I would like to do that. My principal, Mr. Loya, took great personal and professional risk by even writing that blurb in the back, because other administrators that I requested to do that. But that's a whole other topic about how agencies don't always work in the best interest of the client. So and I wish it was part of educational.
Well, who knows? Maybe it'll get there one day.
I hope so.
There's a lot I want to get through here. There's a lot of shame or stigma surrounding abuse. What are the educational requirements and job prospects now? Let's go down this alley for an occupational therapy.
Okay. So I weekly, if not more, get contacted by headhunters for positions for occupational therapy. If anyone wants to, and it's a rigorous training. When I started, it was a pre-med Bachelor of Science, and you could be a full occupational therapist. Now it's at least a master's degree. And after you finish your degree, it's 6 months of internships at 2 different 3-month placements. So the job prospects are excellent if you get through as I said, the rigorous training and you pass a national board exam.
Well, I think one has got to be dedicated when you talk about all of that.
Yes. You have to be dedicated, and then you can work as much or as little as you like. When I was a single mom, I had 3 different positions. I worked in the school district. I had contracts with home health agencies and the Department of Developmental Disabilities. You can work 7 days a week if you choose to as an occupational therapist, or like myself right now, I work in the school district, which is a lovely academic schedule.
It's been a few years, I noticed in research, since you co-wrote Everyday Activities to Help Young Children with Autism Live Life to the Full. That is still, to this day, from what I can understand, helping thousands around the world. This is a professional, it's a professional magazine, and it's called Advance for Occupational Therapy Practitioners. And this is, in fact, a magazine in which you wrote an article for, correct?
Yeah, I've written a few articles. It's not in paper form anymore, but I've written some articles about that little boy that I talked about, and I made him some tiny little bean bags that he could attempt to throw with assistance. I did one about yoga. I would do a daily yoga practice and mindfulness with a classroom of children with different disabilities in an elementary school. And so I really enjoy getting out of the ivory tower and writing for the layperson, writing without jargon,
Mm-hmm.
without acronyms, just writing so that anybody could understand it.
All right.
And
Well, with that in mind, let me ask you this.
yeah.
How can, the person on the street support families with children who do have special needs?
Well, the first thing is a vote for politicians who support public education,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone is able to afford private therapy or private schools. So that's something that anybody can do. Another thing is when you see a child in the store with a mother who might be harried, exhausted, maybe they have other children, and that child is just not behaving or minding, to really take a step back and think about why that might be happening, and to understand that the mother doesn't want the child to be screaming on the floor in the supermarket either, right?
Right,
But
exactly.
they have to buy the food for their family for that week.
Mm-hmm.
So to not be judgmental when you see people who are less than or not as put together as a neurotypical child, or how you would choose your child to be in public, and understand that people are doing the best they can, and with very little support. Unfortunately, in the United States, we don't have the support that some other countries do in terms of providing care for the whole family.
It surprises me, Debra. I mean, such a rich country, and all the rest of it. Again, here we hear about a scenario and a situation that should be totally the other way.
Right.
Folks, this book provides invaluable tools to help parents, carers, and teachers protect vulnerable children. Difficult topics are sensitively and straightforwardly addressed through step-by-step guidelines for parents and learning activities for children. So, in effect, Debra, this important guidebook, it empowers adults really to fulfill their responsibility to protect and support children, and I guess to provide a safe environment in which every child can reach their highest potential, free from coercion or abuse.
Exactly. Something that families really need to understand is, as I said, many, not all, but many families with children with special needs struggle. And unfortunately, there's many single moms out there who struggle. If someone comes into your life like a godsend and starts being helpful and starts babysitting and taking care of things, some of these heinous individuals spend years, and it's called grooming, and they'll groom the entire family, and they'll gain trust, and then they'll start keeping secrets with the little child. And it might be something as simple as, here's a cookie, don't tell your mom, or I bought you an ice cream, this is just between us. And that's an important thing to teach children. Secrets are never okay. If you want to buy a birthday card for your mom, it's a surprise. That's different. But keeping a secret. And so then it could be years before actual physical abuse happens, but the child's been groomed. Imagine what that does to someone who can't cognitively process that.
That's right.
Here's this trusted individual. Mom trusts him or her. We've been with them, vacations. They've been in our home, holidays, and the abuse happens. It's devastating. And it's...
Oh, it is. It is. It just about bring me to tears, but it goes on, and it shouldn't go on. And you bring it to the fore. There is a website, listeners, you can go to www.debrajacobs, Debra, Debra, sjacobs.com. Debra S Jacobs, JACOBS.com. So it's www.debrasjacobs.com. Now, in the book, in closing with you, Debra, on the page before contents, there's this, folks. The book is dedicated to all survivors. Do not allow the past to define your future. I think that just about says it all. Debra Jacobs, listeners, her book providing invaluable tools to help parents, carers, and teachers protect vulnerable children. Now remember the title, won't you? Safety and Consent for Kids and Teens with Autism or Special Needs. Thank you, Debra.
Mark, thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're most welcome, and proud to have you on Nothing Like a Good Book. And we'll be back soon with another wonderful author.